Russ, welcome to the show, my friend. Good to see you. Looking forward to chatting with you today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know and who are not watching on YouTube, Russell and I share something in common, which is we're both lovers of the Cowboys. I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse, but you can't see it, but he's got a big wall mural. I'm gonna have
Want to show
have
it?
have
You
him
want me to
turn his
show
camera. Yeah.
it? Oh, look at that.
There it is, the whole wall. So I got the Witten helmet and the Romo bobblehead. I mean, I don't know. People might stop listening to the show at this point, Russell, but we do have that in common. So thanks for being on. And we've got some exciting news to share for the W2 Prison Break listeners. This show is all about breaking free from the job that you feel trapped in, and I'm just going to let you tell it, Russell. Tell us about what has recently happened to you, and maybe you can even go back a little bit further to what you were doing, how long you were there for.
Right. So, yeah, let me just rewind to 1999, I guess 1998, when I started teaching. But you can rewind all the way back to 1988 when my basketball coach asked me to become his assistant at the high school level, high school basketball. So, 1988, that's a long time ago.
Really?
My very first coaching job was an assistant freshman basketball coach. So I was super excited because my coach invited me to be on his staff. So and I went to community college for a bit, but I knew that I needed to be a teacher in order to be a head coach. That was my ultimate goal, was to be a head coach someday. Um, so in 1998, became a teacher. So then I started my journey. I was a PE teacher, high school basketball coach, right? And I thought I made it, right? I have this secure job. I'm going to get a pension, in 30 years or whatever it was going to be. Um, so, 23 years later, um, I fired my boss. I fired my district, right, so to speak. So I'm not sure, I stopped coaching after my daughter went to college. I just stopped coaching high school sports altogether. And then I it's it wasn't in my heart anymore.
Hmm.
The teaching part. I love teaching. I love coaching, and I guess we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's been what, 3 days now that I fired my district.
Fired your district.
Yeah,
Okay, so how that's great. Congratulations. It's
thank you.
awesome. I mean, there's a lot of people out there listening that want to fire their district or their boss or whatever terminology you want to use.
Right.
How long do you think this has been on your mind? Well, first of all, how does it feel? And then second follow up question would be how long has doing this been on your mind?
Right. So to answer your first question, how does it feel? It's scary, right? And people probably, my friends, my coworkers are probably saying, "What are you doing? You have this secure job, you have this constant paycheck, and you're making good money. You're going to get a pension, when you're 62 and a half, and you're going to max out at this month. People are, and the district recently got a raise this year,
Hmm.
right? We got a 7% raise, and my friends were like, "What are you doing?" and I'm like, it's time, right? And so it actually dates back to 2000 when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad
Hmm.
and the four quadrants. So obviously, being a W-2, you're in the E section, right, of the quadrant. And I always wanted to be on the right side of the quadrant, business owner, investor.
Right.
Um, but I just didn't have the fun. I didn't have the capital. I didn't have the knowledge. My mindset was, you know, be a teacher, and do what you're supposed to do as far as being in a secure job. That was my mindset. So I've always had kind of the dream of being an investor, being a real estate investor, or, being on the right side of the quadrant. But you get stuck in that rat race, right? So, but it was this in 2019 when I joined Smart Real Estate Coach. My mindset shifted a bit at the time. I still had a secure mindset, but yeah, 2019 is when my mindset kind of shifted a bit.
That's when it shifted. And okay, so 2000, you read the book that pretty much every real estate investor has read. That's what got me started. I didn't read it in 2000. I wish I had. But so 20 years, 20 something years, you're trying to break out.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was about the same amount of time, and we have similar paths because we're part of the same, mastermind, the same community. And, you mentioned something about mindset, like you didn't have the right mindset. You had the mindset that all the people who are telling you, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are getting a 7% raise. Why are you doing this? Steady paycheck, steady. And while there's probably a lot of stability in your job, Russ, you're still expendable, right? And I think you realize that at some point. And then you had mentioned that you just kind of lost the passion for it. It sounds like, for teaching. I think you definitely want to be a coach, and you are a coach. We'll get into that in a minute. But it sounds like you maybe lost the passion for going at it every day.
Yeah, and I don't want to. I mean, COVID kind of helped my decision. It actually, some people froze during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I thrived as far as my mindset. I teach PE, so I'm at home in front of my computer trying to teach PE. So, but I was able to. It was only a half day. I was doing noon every day. So it helped because I was able to focus on my business, right? And I got a couple of properties under contract during COVID, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this, and then just, I don't want to get into the kids and how it's shifted a bit, but that being at home and being able to work on my business really shifted my mindset. I was able to read a lot. I was able to listen to a lot of podcasts and just really dive into a different way of thinking, right?
Definitely. So tell us, you mentioned a couple properties. So tell us about your business. What is it that you're doing, and how did you get involved with that? And then I know that that's really what shifted your mindset and ultimately gave you the I don't know if I'm using the right word, the courage or the comfortability to do what you just did, which a lot of people want to do, which is to leave your job, right, and do your own thing. So talk about what your business is.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with Smart Real Estate Coach, we buy and sell on terms, lease purchase, owner financing, subject to, and it attracted me. Like I said, back in 2000, I wanted to get on the right side of the quadrant. So during 2018, 2019, we were living paycheck to paycheck. We were making, my wife and I both are teachers. We make decent money, but we were knee deep in. I still have student loans from 1998, which is crazy. She has student loans, so we were knee deep in debt. So we made some structural decisions financially, which freed up a lot of some cash. And so I just started kind of like, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to fix and flip? Do I want to buy and hold? The BRRRR method, I was really looking into the BRRRR method. And obviously it took capital, right? That's why I kind of mentioned in 2000, like, we don't have the funds. We have a daughter almost going to college. We have a son, it was in middle school. So we're like, I can't be like throwing money out there in a risky, some people, it could be risky, but I didn't have the knowledge, right? If I had the knowledge of fix and flips or the BRRRR method, and probably wouldn't be as risky as it was, but I just didn't have the knowledge, right? So I ran into Smart Real Estate Coach, which is you're buying on terms. There's no money out of your pocket, right? You're in the middle. You're buying here, you're selling here, without money coming out of your pocket. That really attracted me. And then the coach part, right? The last part of the Smart Real Estate Coach. I'm like, well, I'm a coach. Let me just dive in, right? So I dove in 2019, and it just kind of took off from there. And I just kind of put my head down. I'm like, well, this is something that I want to do. I wanted to transition because I knew I was in the back end of my teaching career, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I had 13 years left, and in my mind, I'm like, well, there's no way I can't do 13 years.
13 years to the pension, right? Is that what you're referring
13
to?
years to the pension.
To
right?
the pension.
So all my teacher friends are just like, how much longer do you have to your full pension, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what attracted me to your podcast, which is it sounded like a prison. I sounded like I was in prison, and I was maxed out, right? You're only maxed out as a teacher. You have a ceiling, right?
Mm-hmm. In terms of your income, you're referring to.
You have a ceiling. And you said, I'm expendable, not necessarily, unless I do something really stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not necessarily expendable as a teacher. You can't get fired. And you can be the worst teacher of all time and still get a paycheck monthly. But in the end, it wasn't appealing.
Yeah.
And being with Smart Real Estate Coach and the opportunity, to be able to coach still, right? Sellers, you're coaching sellers because they don't know what terms means. Mm-hmm. You're coaching buyers, because they can't get financing today, so they just need time. So you're coaching them along, right? And you're changing. You're still impacting people's lives, on both ends, right? Investor sometimes has a negative connotation to it. That you're trying to come in and you're swooping over properties at a lower percentage, just so you can get that property and you can flip it and make a profit, right? That's what appealed to me. Smart Real Estate Coach was, it's not necessarily about the profit. Yeah, we want to make money. It's a business, but it's also about helping people. And that's what
and that's your coach mentality. Sorry to interrupt you there. I mean, the coach, you said a couple of things that really resonated with you. First of all, I want to give everyone listening a resource. We keep talking about Smart Real Estate Coach and buying on terms. If you don't know what that is, and real estate is something that you're looking at as a vehicle to potentially break out of your W-2, I would encourage everyone. I'll leave a link in the show notes of where you can go to take a free master's class to learn about what we're discussing a little bit more, because most people don't know that you can buy and sell properties with no money down and none of your own credit. It's something that I do in my real estate business, something that Russell does in his real estate business, and we've seen hundreds and hundreds of people do it and do it successfully. And if for no other reason other than imagine you could buy your next house, your primary residence, with no money down and none of your own credit, what could that do for you and your family? So we'll leave a link in the notes for you to go check out that class. It's free. And then the other thing that you had mentioned in the beginning, Russell, which is very important, was it sounded like you had student loan debt. Very common. A lot of us have student loan debt. And that can kind of prevent you from doing something different, because I got to pay for this. I have to pay for this, and I have to stay in my job. I assume that's what kept you there for a long time, but it sounds like you made some pivots without getting into, details, and numbers and such. Like, what were some of the strategies that you employed that was able to get you out of that or make that a little bit more palatable for you so that you could, chase your dreams and become your own boss?
Yeah, great question. So there's two specific things that we did, which is it's a strategy called velocity baking, and infinite infinite banking concept. So the
Yes.
velocity banking is you take we did, which was a HELOC. We had a lot of equity in our home. So you take a home equity line of credit, and you pay off certain debts, and then you throw your paycheck into the HELOC, and then you pay your expenses out of the HELOC. And over time, if you have cash flow, the equity, the home equity line of credit drops, right?
Yep.
Because you're throwing your paycheck in there, you're paying expensive, you have cash flow, that cash flow eats away at the HELOC. And then once the HELOC drops a certain level, then we call it chunking, you chunk at another debt, credit card, whatever it was. And then you just just rinse and repeat, right? Rinse and repeat. And so we were able to pay off a lot of the high-end credit cards, high interest rate credit cards, which created more cash flow and dropped our debt. And then I got into infinite banking concept, which is life insurance policy, a whole life insurance policy. It's called Bank on Yourself. There's a lot of different ways you can say it. You got to get the right one, right? There's different ones out there, different products that as they say. So you want to make sure you get the right one, make sure you're speaking to the right person who's going to set up these policies. So we were able to, what I did was they tell you to do, it was called a TSA at the time, or 401B, a TSA is more for teachers.
Right.
And they take it out of your paycheck every day or every month. And then you wait until you retire, right? And you can't touch it. You can't do anything about it, right? You just got to wait. And then what I was, reading and YouTubing and all that, taxes, it's not a guarantee, but 13 years from down the line,
Yep.
is taxes going to be higher or lower? Probably higher. So I'm going to be taxed at a really high rate when I retire. So I said, no, I'm going to control my life. I'm going to control how we bank. So I took the money out. You take a hit, right? The good thing with COVID is they didn't.
You didn't do 10%. You didn't have to pay the penalty. Yep.
Yeah,
and they upped it to 100 grand.
Yeah. So what I did was I utilized that. I took the money out. You're going to pay taxes on it, but you didn't get hit on early withdrawal, right? So I put that in a life insurance policy, and then you can take policy loans out. You can pay it back when you want. So then I started using those policy loans to pay off certain debts. So it really freed up a lot of cash flow, which allowed me to get into Smart Real Estate Coach, and really it really accelerated my prison break.
Yeah. This is great. So I'm going to ask you to, so you got resourceful. You picked two different ways to do this, because a lot of people who want to leave their job or start another, maybe do a different career, not necessarily leave a W-2, do a different career, something you're more passionate about, or start a business that you're passionate about. The money's always a block. So money, mindset, and then your motivation. Like a lot of people start businesses don't really have a strong why behind it, and we'll talk about that for you in a minute. But can you share the two resources that you just mentioned? I know both of them, but I want you to share the life insurance policy or the Bank on Yourself policy. Who did you use to get that set up?
Yeah, so the HELOC is simple.
The life insurance policy.
Oh, the life insurance. Yeah. With Smart Real Estate Coach, you're exposed to people that they use, right? Within their own lives and their own business. So I was able to get hooked up with Mark Willis, and he's fantastic. He's helped many lives within the Smart Real Estate Coach genre or the community.
Yes.
And he set up a kind of a business one for me where when I do get a house under contract and I get money coming in, that money is going to go specifically with that policy. And then I can take policy loans out if I need. Typically with our business, you're not going to have any issues, but they're going to rise as you've experienced it.
Right. Right.
You probably have experience with, buyers not performing, and you have to make sure that you're paying the bills. So there's a separate policy for my business, and then my wife and I have our own personal one. And it's just is so awesome to be able to control your own money, right? And
So
to
awesome.
have a legacy, right? We put policies on our kids, and we're funding a policy with our kids. The kids don't need to, to get medical or anything like that to get the policy, because they're under 18. So you fund them, and then once they become of age, let's say they get married, then you just hand it off, and now that legacy rolls with them. So
That's right. They're doing a great thing. And that's how you create generational wealth for you and your family, generations to come. And the reason I asked you is because now you mentioned a gentleman by the name of Mark Willis, and I use him as well. I have policies. He's been on the show. So for anyone who wants to learn what we're referring to right now, which I can tell you that a lot of people don't understand this, go listen to that episode. You can watch it on the channel and get in touch with Mark. He's one of the smartest people I've ever had the pleasure of being around, period. Every time I hear him talk, he gets smarter. All right. So appreciate you sharing that resource, Russell. What about the Heloc concept is you just really have to look at it as, and I've done this as well. We use it to blast our mortgage, but you can use it, as Russell said, debt. So you have a W-2 paycheck coming in every month. You're just using this strategy of simple interest versus compound interest. So a HELOC is simple interest. So if you're paying 5% on a loan, on a $10,000 loan, that's $500 a year. So do the math versus compound interest over 30 years. It's a lot of money. And you're using that to blast down your debt and basically using it as your checking account. And where did you learn this particular strategy? I want to give the listeners another resource again, because you didn't start earning more money. You just shifted the way that you moved your money around and used some other resources. And then you were able to, okay, we have more cash flow now. I'm not as nervous about leaving my job. So what was the other resource? Give us the other resource that you used for the HELOC.
Yeah, I was just, fiddling around the YouTube, and just, I'm not sure how it just came about. I mean, his name is Denzel. Oddly enough, it's Denzel Washington, but it's not
Not the actor.
Yeah. So, and I don't necessarily have an affiliate with him or anything like that. It was just listening to how it worked, right?
Yeah.
And just doing my research. And I'm wearing the shirt that life rewards action. What it was is this: I just took action, right? You investigate, you learn, you change your mindset in a way that helps your family, right? So I took action. I just learned about it. It's called velocity banking, and it just made sense, right? We had a steady paycheck. That's what made sense a lot, right? So I knew I had a certain cash flow, and the cash flow is the key, right? You have four numbers. You have your income, you have your expenses, you have your total debt, and then you have your cash flow. So the cash flow is key with velocity banking, and all it takes is $500,000 of cash flow each month, and you can change the way you bank, right? And you just take total control of your expenses.
Totally. You have to have some discipline too, but yeah, you're taking control.
Yeah, it just total control, right? Because we were just living paycheck to paycheck. We were, we're late on certain credit cards, and we're making plenty of money. And I just took a step back and said, well, what is going on here? So, you peel the onion, you pull back the curtains and you just take a real hard look at your expenses, and then once that started to kind of come along, and like you said, it takes discipline. Once you do it monthly, yearly, and you see what's going on as far as your expenses, and you see how positive it is towards
Yeah.
your life, number one, because as you know, um, finances in people's lives could be a detriment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once we started freeing up some cash flow, just to be honest with you, our marriage got better.
I would love it. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We were
Mm-hmm.
able to help our kids out more. We were able to spend more, and it's not about the money, right? But it's about the freedom to be able to do certain things, right? My daughter was she was in travel softball, and if anybody knows about travel softball, it's pretty expensive. We're traveling to Florida, we're traveling to Canada, Missouri, we're wherever at Colorado. We were traveling everywhere, but because we were able to shift our finances, it was not a big deal anymore. Like before, we were like, it was concerning, right? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? But once we freed up cash flow, we were able to kind of take a deep breath and relax. And then it's like, okay, now let's go enjoy ourselves, right?
Awesome. I love that story. For the listeners, Rusty and I have known each other for several years, and I just learned that about you. So, really awesome. And that your relationship got better, because it does, and it sounds like you approach this from a team concept, like the both of you did. It wasn't, I'm going to do this alone. You guys sat down and came up with a plan. I'm curious, are you close to paying off your student debt, or have you done that already, or is it within sight? Give us an update. Give us some hope here.
Yeah. So great question. So we were, it's crazy. So, I mean, my wife and I got married in 98,
Mm-hmm.
99, sorry. And we both had college debt. We combined it, which was not the smartest thing. And then we refinanced it, which is also not very smart. So we had over $110,000 in debt combined, right? And that was about $1,000 a month coming out of our our paycheck.
It's like a house payment.
Right. Yeah. 110. I mean, you guys imagine, and we're in 2019 is when I started the Velocity Banking. So, we're talking 20 years of having $110,000 of school debt, $1,000 a month. I mean, just let that sink in, right? And it wasn't going away it was probably going to be for life. I mean, we refinanced for 15 more years. So we were going to have 110 for another 15 years, another $1,000 a month for 15 years. So when I transferred that TSA 401k, for lack of a better term, into my life insurance policy, immediately we paid off half of it, only half, right? So that's $500 a month, freed up cash flow, right? That money that I transferred from my TSA into my life insurance policy, now I have a death benefit. I have, guaranteed 5% on that cash, and then I borrowed against it. So that was huge, right? So now we have another 50 grand left to pay off. So my mom's house is free and clear. So I said, hey, Mom, would you mind doing a Heloc for 50K?
Yeah.
So I'm not ashamed to say that at 53, I'm asking for my mom for help, but she was more than willing to help me out. So she took out a $50,000 Heloc and a free and clear home of, it's appraised at 1 million. So I'm like,
he lives in California, folks,
he
by
lives
the
in
way.
California. Yeah. So, the house I grew up in. So I asked her for a little help. right? So she took out a Heloc, 50 grand, paid off the remaining balance of our school loan. So we have no more school loans. And I I pay her Heloc, which is $170 a month.
Repeat that. Repeat the payment, the monthly payment.
It's 100. Well, it's monthly now. It's 170, but as you know, simple interest, as the principal goes down, you're being charged a certain percent on the daily average. So
Yeah.
as the principal goes down, obviously the payment's going to go down, rather than amortize, which is it's going to be $1,000 a month, no matter what the principal is, right?
This is so awesome. I didn't know this was going to go here, but I'm just going to give everyone a recap on the math. $110,000 that, you know, Russ, you just said he probably saw no end in sight. He'd carry it forever, right?
Yep.
$1,000 a month. Now it's down to $171 a month. So you freed up $829 worth of cash flow. Again, you just made a couple of moves, right? You got resourceful, you got educated, you learned about different strategies that you can use. You asked your mom for help, and she's willing to do it. And it's not like it's costing her anything. You're paying it, right? So these are the types of things that you can do when you start thinking differently. And now you got $829 a month freed up
Yep.
to do other things with, and that makes you feel a lot. I mean, that's a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you're only paying the interest on the 50 grand versus, you know, I'm sure that student loan debt. I mean, again, do the math. You've
Right.
doubled the student loan debt, but you're paying $1,000 a month. So you're just getting completely annihilated, you know, on the interest on that. So good move. Good on you guys. And you know, I love that you shared that, because that would keep most people in your position. Probably you would have worked the next 13 years to get the pension, right? The full pension.
Yeah. So by the time I retire, you know, supposedly my student loan debt would be done, right? So
Yeah.
I couldn't
And I
wait.
don't think we're not encouraging everyone here to, you know, take your 401k or your retirement account and, you know, cash it out. But it's like, just learn that there's other things you can do with it. Okay.
Right.
It's number one, have the mindset that it is your money. It's yours. It doesn't belong to anybody else. And you should have complete control over it.
Right.
You know, I had a lot of money in my 401k before I left my job, and I was trusting it blindly to people I didn't know, hedge fund managers, mutual funds. I had no control over it. And I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of where to put it. It wasn't until I took control of it to where I could just say, okay, well, I can invest in this in apartments and syndication, or I can loan some money out to people. I have complete control, because you can, you know, it's not to go off on a tangent here, but, you know, you can do self-directed 401ks, self-directed IRAs. And if you have a business, you can get into solo 401ks. That's what I have for my business. And you can have a loan component. You can buy these policies. You can borrow from it. I mean, and you have complete control, and you can invest in alternative assets, not just the stock market. So just another nugget there. Russell, what's next for you? You've left this job. What are you doing now? Tell us a little bit about your new venture here.
Yeah. So, you know, smart real estate coach, we're buying and selling on terms, right? So I started that business 2019. You know, and it was just a kind of a side gig, right? Aside from my teaching. So I get home, you know, there's always a story, you know, I would send my kids on a mile run and I would make calls, I would make calls as they would run the mile, right? It's one of my famous stories within Smart Real Estate Coach. And then I'd come home and spend an hour and a half on making calls and calling sellers, right? But the community smart real estate coach, Chris and Zach, I started coaching other associates around the nation in 2021. And it was just, again, it was more of a side gig. I had, you know, maybe 4 or 5 associates that I was coaching. And again, it's in my blood, right? I just felt the passion of just watching them succeed. Um, so I'm just switching gears from, teaching and coaching teenagers to teaching and coaching adults that want to change their lives. So in 2021, they asked me, and then the beginning of 2022, they asked me to come on full time. So they're gonna, they offered to give me a salary. So I am technically switching, from a W-2 to another W-2. However, um, it's not the same, right? There's incentives, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I get bonuses and stuff, so it's a different adventure. It's scary, right? Because it's not you're going from a secure paycheck month to month with with health insurance and all that kind of stuff to what to but I saw the growth within the company. I think it was growing at 40% each year. They need coaches as they grow. So my ultimate goal in 2024 is just hopefully sooner to be the head coach of all the coaches and be
Nice.
in charge of that, right? And then just have freedom, right? Just be, I am going to be working at home. I'm not going to be able to, I'm not going to be able to see my coworkers, at school anymore. I'll miss that, but I won't miss the grind, the rat race as they call it. There's a story with, I called in sick a few months back, and I ran out. You get sick days and you get personal leave days, right? You get 10 a year, right? So I used up all my personal leave days, and they charged me for it. I looked at my paycheck and they took it out of my paycheck because I ran out of days. I used too many, but I had like sick days left.
Yeah.
So I used the wrong avenue, right? I should have used sick days instead of. So it's just, that was kind of like the turning point. It's like, you're charging me. I have days, I have, at least sick days, whatever you want to call it. But that was kind of the turning point, which is, I want to be in control. I don't want people taking money away from me just because, I want to call in sick or whatever. So, what does the future look like? Hopefully I'll be the head coach of all the coaches within the company, and we'll go from there.
I love that you have a stated goal and a timeline associated with it. This is super important, folks. If you want something, you can't just have it floating around in your head. Now, I guarantee you, Russell's got it written down and he just spoke it. He knows it. He's very specific with it. This matters. Okay, so this is another lesson that you just learned from Coach Rusty. We have many names for Russell Ham here, and El Rusty is one that we call him in the community. And he's been a coach for 30 years, so now he's coaching. He's got a real estate business, and he's coaching others how to do it. So he still has the giving back mentality, and which is great. And I can tell you that, I've watched you grow over the last couple, 3 years, and it's been tremendous. And I 100% think you'll be the head coach, and I'm really excited for you. And it's great. Yeah, it is scary, but at the same time, it's liberating as well, because you have this freedom. You mentioned your wife, you mentioned your kids, and you've taken control of your situation versus relying on somebody else, which in your situation was the government. Tell us how we can get in touch with you. If people want to learn more about your real estate business, because you're buying properties in California, how do people get in touch with you there?
Yeah, you can go to, I have my own website, www.hampropertysolutions.com. And then it has the buying part and the selling part of selling on terms. and
Any other places we can find you? A TAM, like the deli meat,
food. Yeah,
Property Solutions. Yeah. Any other
just one
places
M.
we can?
Yeah, just one M. Because people
Just one up.
get confused with that too. So it's just one M, HAM.
Hmm.
And I'm HPS Russell Ham on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm on both of those social media channels
Awesome.
as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Now you gave one book recommendation. I always ask people about books. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you're in real estate and you haven't read that one, I don't know what to say. Any other books maybe that you're reading now or recently that may have really helped you with this recent transition that you've made that you want to share with the listeners?
Yeah, so there's two specific ones that just came to my mind real quick, which is
Hmm.
Profit First, which is super important if you're gonna it, obviously for a business, but I treated our personal expenses as business expenses, right? So I use Profit First. So I have several different accounts that were funneling that new cash flow that we have. We funnel that money into certain buckets, so to speak.
Hmm.
And then Impossible Hill by Peter Totten. Find your North Star. So, um, you know, this is my North Star. I'm attacking this hill, and I'm sure there's going to be other hills in the near future. Right, this is not my only hill that I'm going to be um, going after. I'm sure there'll be another hill to go after. Right.
Absolutely. Two great recommendations. Profit First by Mike McAllowitz, sorry. And that is basically pay yourself first. Why are you paying everybody else before you pay yourself? So, and this is actually one of the great lessons from this book is I taught my son this. So I give him allowance and he pays himself first. I'm like, go put this in the will only jar and you can, use it to invest in something. So teach your kids these lessons. Impossible Hill. I'm guilty. It's on my list, and I have it here. I have so many books I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm looking forward to reading that one. We'll put both of those links in the show notes. Russ, any final thoughts? Anything I didn't ask you, or that you didn't get to share that you wanted to drop today? Because you've been really giving some great tools and resources and feedback on your journey.
Right, and you've mentioned it several times. And be resourceful. People they get stuck in their ways, and the word can't comes into mind for a lot of people. Like, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that. Um, just reach out to people, do your research, take action. Like I have the shirt on. Just take action. Right. It's scary, right? Um, my wife, my wife, when I resigned last Friday, it was scary. Like I emailed the principal and the district, and I copied her, and then she emailed back. She says, "Wow, this is really happening," right? It's scary, but as long as you take action and have the right mindset, you can accomplish anything. Seriously. So I appreciate this podcast because it kind of came right at the right time, right? You started this podcast and I took action to fire my district. So I really appreciate you having me on and being able to tell my story.
Yeah, no, it's great, and yeah, the timing is pretty awesome. So we're both passionate about helping people break free, and um, I'm gonna ask you one more question about what your final thought, which was okay. So you sent this email to resign. There was anxiety around it,
Yeah.
obviously, right? I was petrified to do it. What was the reaction like? Share with us what their reaction and did you project onto that situation, meaning like they were going to have a different reaction than they did?
Right. So I wrote it in the morning as soon as I got there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a draft
Yep.
and I was staring at it all day.
Sure.
um, so it was pretty scary, right? 23 years of teaching, giving up that security. It's pretty scary, right? So the principal knew, right? We've had several conversations over the year. I've actually worked with the principal for 19 years,
Yeah.
right? He was my assistant principal at another site, and he was my principal at this school. So I would occasionally go into his office. We would talk real estate because he wants to do the same thing, but his mindset is not there, right? He's
Yeah.
like, well, I got this. I have to wait until I'm this age, right? And so we would have those conversations. So he knew, right? And then other people knew as well, because and like you said, I when I made the decision, I told everyone. And I don't know if that was a smart thing to do, because I wasn't sure about, and that was before they offered me a salary. The Smart
Yeah.
Real Estate Coach offered me
Yeah.
a salary. So I was in my mind, I was done. So I was telling everybody, but the kids didn't know. I was trying to, still be the teacher that I was. I didn't like not do my job, but writing that email as soon as I got there was pretty scary, right? And
Yeah.
I stared at it, but the response was, "Hey, congratulations!" It was more. A lot of people were in envy because I made that move. Because teachers, you get stuck, right? After a certain amount of years, it's you know teachers, sometimes when you get old, when you teach a lot of years, sometimes you lose that passion, right? Um, and a lot of my friends that are teachers were envious. They were just like, "Oh my God, you are actually doing this." Like they're one side, they're like, "Oh, you're crazy," but on the other side is they're like, I wish I would, I wish I was doing what you were doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, they can. Maybe you've inspired them, and and maybe if you can get one of them, I know that would make you happy.
right,
Because yeah, you do lose it. I don't have any experience with teaching, but I could imagine that after a long time, it just becomes, it becomes like robotic, and you're not maybe as passionate as before, especially when you have other things you want to do. We all change. So great final note there. It was scary, but you did it, and it wasn't as bad as you thought. People didn't weren't jumping out of the building, so it was okay. All right, hey, listen, man, it was great to see you. I appreciate you being on and really adding value, and I hope we're giving people hope here that you don't have to make these drastic changes in your life to get to where you want to go. You just got to, as Russell said, just got to be resourceful and have the right mindset and get around the right people. So I appreciate everyone tuning in, and make it a great day, and we'll see you next week.